Hello, internet friends, and welcome to episode number 204 of Final Boss TV. Today, we're talking about the Unholy Death Knight, and my name is Adam K, aka Bay. And have you had a happy holidays so far? Hope you have. It is now officially December 1st. Thanksgiving is past. Now you may put up your holiday lights. If you put them up 2 weeks ago, like my division did, my subdivision did, it wasn't even Thanksgiving yet. All right? Christmas lights, holiday lights, whatever you want to, they can go up now, but look, it's fine. However, Black Friday was upon us. Some deals are going over the weekend, of course. Cyber Monday is tomorrow, as we're currently sitting here. If you're watching this on YouTube, then Cyber Monday is today, depending on where you are in the world. But a big way you can help support the show, the stream, and everything in between. I'm wearing one of the Fabelina designs. This is the little Arthas and Cindy, little Lich King. It's actually a huge deal right now happening over on Designed by Humans. I just saw this, got the email yesterday. Entire store is 30% off. And there is free shipping. I know the top bar has it. You can't see it on my cutoff here. Free worldwide shipping if you do $50 or more on apparel. So all the different designs you have on the Final Boss TV Designed by Humans store, all the different Fabelina layouts, Teutron designs. If you click on the design, then it takes you to where you can customize it, put it on whatever you would like, sweatshirt, hoodie, tank top, baseball tee, you name it. No V-necks yet, though, unfortunately. I'm still working on that. Got some more products on the horizon, and patrons are going to get something special this year, but that is currently going on right now. And again, of course, big shout out to those that are supporting the show, the stream, and everything in between directly over on the show's Patreon page. So you get some behind-the-scenes notes. You get those BTS podcasts. You'll be getting your holiday cards. And those that have been sitting around for long enough, you're going to get a Final Boss TV crew t-shirt with the new logo on it, new Vector logo, and just the word crew on the back. It's one of those black shirts that sort of work in like theater or the film industry. If you work crew or behind the scenes, normally you wear all black, but you're getting a black crew t-shirt for Final Boss TV. They are coming back. It must be for patrons. We already have your information. We've already sent messages, so if you are at the appropriate tiers, check your Patreon inboxes. And if not, then maybe next year. But links for all that stuff is down below. But today, Unholy Death Knight, as it says right there, bottom of the screen. We talked about Frost about 4 months ago, I believe, and the man, the myth, the legend, who will literally talk through the entire show if I don't let him. Biceps, welcome back, sir. How you doing?
I'm alright, how are you?
Do you have enough stuff to talk about today? Can you fit it all into roughly 100 minutes?
You know, I don't feel like, it can be 10 minutes, something like that. I don't feel like I'm say that much usually.
Oh, okay. You don't. All right. So we'll hold you to that. So
okay.
Mark this man at 10 minutes of conversation only. Joining you today, unfortunately, two off-camera boys. First up, Tzo. You're bringing all the math, correct? Right? You're all, you know everything, and you're here to keep Bicep in line, right?
Some math.
Some math.
My Bicep's still good about that. But yeah, good to be here.
And I guess the guinea pig or the dirty flavor of the month reroller. Why is Tzo Cistara on the show again? Hello, sir.
Oh, I just bring in the rating perspective, Mythic Plus perspective. Hopefully, we'll see.
Oh yeah, you played in something called like the Mythic Dungeon International. Was that something important?
We'll use the term played very loosely.
Oh no! What is that? Wait. We'll unpack that right now. That's for a different show. But we have a lot of Unholy Death Knight stuff to get to today, as the Ketsu Keks come into chat. So the first half of the show, first big chunk here, is titled, well, I will imagine I will name it on YouTube. So what the heck is quadratic scaling? And we'll get to that. That's like the buzz phrase that comes up about Unholy Death Knight whenever it gets brought up. But I'm going to go back to Tzo Cistara on this one real quick. If you want to give opening shout outs, what the heck do you do on the internet? What do you dabble in, sir? Who the heck are you? Why should we listen to anything you have to say? Defend your
yeah.
MDI stuff if you want.
Yeah, so I'm Tzo Cistara, currently a raider in Vodka, which is, top US guild. Outside of that, I do High Mythic Plus, have competed in MDI twice. We won NA in the first one, second one disqualified. Third one, we got fourth in the West, I think. So in all 3 cups. So
I mean, you said play loosely, but you've got some ranks. The disqualification is obviously unfortunate, but there's only been 3, with the 4th one brewing, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just kind of say play loosely, just because you always have room to improve, right? So got to give yourself some motivation.
Now, do you think you'll actually be playing Unholy for the next MDI with the new corrupted affix and not as much prevalence on AoEing? Those bosses are all single target, unless you just skip all 4 of them and bring them all to the boss at the end. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely room for it. I think, especially like next season, I definitely think you'll be skipping quite a few pillars to like bring them into the end boss and just kind of play it like that way, just because it's more time efficient.
Okay.
Which Unholy could definitely see some play there. But I mean, as long as Bursting Swords exists, I think Unholy will always have a place in Mythic Plus.
Fair enough. Tzo, how about you, sir? What do you dabble in when it comes to the worlds of Warcraft? How have you been part of said dabbling?
So I started in Legion, or started raiding in Legion, sorry. So I'm relatively newer to the raiding scene, but I'm currently a raider in Death Jesters, on Storm Rage, and I'm more casual Mythic Plus. I dabble in some like 15s or so. Do some PvP, which is can be rage inducing, but outside of raiding, I'm more casual. I have a lot of alts that I keep up for seemingly no apparent reason. But yeah.
How many of those alts have full tier 3 essences and level 70 necks though?
Full tier 3, only 2. 70 neck, I have 3. I plan on getting 4 and 5 soon. So well, yeah.
What? Wow. I mean, I commend you, sir. That's impressive. Did you see Roger's tweet about how he has all tier 4 essences on his hunter?
Yeah, that's disgusting. Also, please give my DK one of the essences from the Paragon bags. I still have not gotten one on any character. So like,
yeah,
please.
I think I'm at like 33 boxes opened with no essence or something like that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Oof. And Biceps, take us out. What do you do? What do you dabble in the World of Warcraft? How long have you been part of said dabbling?
I feel like I do quite a lot of theocrafting. I do guide writing for Wowhead. I've done that since the pre-patch of BFA. Before that, I started doing quite a lot of theocrafting back in Legion with the Dark Arbor and those breakpoints and all that. And that kind of got me into it, which then kept going. I discuss a lot of things with Zoe, talk a lot with you as well. We test things, we try out new things, we think about what might be better than other things. Yeah.
Now, this Wowhead guide, speaking of, shout out to Wowhead's new design, by the way, if you haven't poked Wowhead in a little while. High five to Ketsu and everyone over there at Wowhead. The new design is quite good. But you wrote all of this, so all of this is yours. No one else helped you?
That's
or do you
correct.
have any... Oh, really? I was going to say, do you have some shout-outs you want to give out there to anyone else that helps you make all this stuff and figure all this stuff out?
So, as I mentioned, I discuss a lot of things with you and Zoe, and I also talk a lot with Melikas, who's kind of like the simulation craft person of it. He implements new interactions. He writes the code for the DK models so it actually works as it does in game. He also helps us out quite a lot when we want new, like if you want to test something out. For instance, pre-pulling army at a different time interval, he can implement that kind of thing, and then you use that in simulation craft and you can figure out new things.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the FAQ here, just scrolling through that kind of stuff, like pre-pulling with army. There's a lot of prevalence of the double on-use trinket meta right now for Unholy. So
that was so annoying to figure out. Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
If
I
you-
got quite a good story about that because the Razor Coral was under simming quite heavily for us,
Oh,
at
really?
least for Frost, until we fixed that in Simulation Craft.
Yeah, what do we gain, like 3.5k DPS just from that one change
was-
in Simcraft?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adding all the trinkets in both for Frost and Holy are terrible as far as
Yeah.
stuff goes.
Why is that terrible to add that in? Like, what's the? Because I'm in a Discord group alone with a bunch of the mathy boys behind essentially Enhancement and Havoc and a few others. So I get to see like they have their giant thread blocks that they post now and then when they're updating things on patches, or the beginning of the expansion was absolutely nutty. So what was the problem alone? Like, Tzo, did you want to speak to that about why is?
So, like, to get something in sim, like I don't have like computer engineering background or anything, so I'm like I could read and like write APL or like action priority lists
Yeah.
for stuff, but as far as like getting something to behave in an action priority list like you want it to, could be quite difficult at times, and like a lot of conditions. So like with Font of Power and Razor Coral, you want those to like overlap with Frost during like breath and stuff, or trying to see if font is going to be useful to like hold it for cooldowns for Unholy, or when to consume the crit stacks. Like, what if you use Vision Miner? That stuff. It could like. There's a lot of testing that goes into it. A lot of time.
Okay. And I guess that definitely brings me over to the first point here. So with any of the spec shows that have multiple specs within the class we talk about, and obviously it was months ago, it was back in August, I believe, we talked about Frost DK. So some of that will sort of pepper the show here. Bicep, just back me up on overall perception. What have you guys sponged up in the Discord community? What are you seeing in game? And how is sort of just either Frost and Unholy Death Knight like fitting in right now? We're on the cusp of the Whispers of N'Zoth patch. So what is changing?
Yeah.
How are you guys doing right now going into that?
I feel like the general consensus is that Frost is quite alright in raid, especially for the last couple of bosses. It performs really nicely. Generally, people don't think that Frost is very good in Mythic Plus, even though it is. Generally, people might not think Unholy is good. Like, it starts getting better. People start understanding how actually powerful Unholy can be. But it's not like you would see the average Joe being like, ooh, an Unholy, let's bring him in. At least not from... I haven't played in a while, so... I feel like generally, as I've said this in the previous one, that people overestimate how good and how bad things are. Generally, everything is viable in the context that people play in. There's like very few people that actually get affected by what they should play and what they should pick. Usually, you can pick what you think is most fun, and you can play that. And if you're good at it, it's going to be completely fine.
Yeah, I'm just pulling over here. Oh, no, go ahead. I'm just pulling up Warcraft logs to like bounce around. I brought up Mythic as first.
Yeah. I think Frost is better at the top end, and Unholy's slightly below that. But Unholy's more popular, so that kind of drags it down a little. But I honestly think this is the closest Unholy and Frost have been since probably Antor's, I would say.
I'd say that.
I think if you exclude the last 2-3 bosses, they would be very similar.
I'd say honestly, only excluding Ashara.
Alright.
Yeah, I think Unholy falls behind
like
a decent
Unholy
bit
could
on
do,
Shara.
yeah, Unholy could do really well on Zakul. And Queen's Court is a terrible boss for melee. Just delete it, please. But honestly, Unholy could do really well outside of Ashara, and the only reason that Frost is better is you can like take the role of a rep paladin and delete those ads. You could be Narcoles or whatever.
Narcoles.
Or you could like that second ad in phase 3, you could literally solo it as a Frost DK. Whereas like you could as Unholy, but it would require you to use army there, and like you don't have that again for the fight. So that's a big loss for Unholy.
Yeah, well, I mean, the ads alone in P2 for Frost, that's like I've had anywhere from a 3 mil hit, if more people hit it, to a 6.2 mil hit if I'm doing it all myself. So like that amount of damage variance is insane, which can allow you to get really high parses. seemingly randomly based on procs.
Just kind of scrubbing through different mythic bosses here, looking around. It does, obviously we're seeing a different, like the median, or I suppose like Frost has always been a bit higher, but overall numbers depending on boss to
So
boss.
if you look at damage done to bosses,
As I'm doing right now, yeah.
on a lot of bosses, yeah, they are a bit closer. The thing is that like Unholy's like a very popular spec for DK, so the bottom end can kind of drag it down when a lot of the top end people are playing Frost. Whereas like if they were to swap to Unholy, I think you'd see those numbers jump up a little bit. So
There's a lot
Yeah,
of
it's-
things that go into rankings here that you might
Yeah.
not see at the first glance. It matters who plays the spec, right? For instance, now that Frost is popular in the high end, that will skew statistics. Things like that. If the spec is easier, generally more popular, whereas the other one is actually better, that might, switch things around.
Pulled up I had Mythic up first, and Unholy was ahead by about 2,000 or so parses over the past 2 weeks. I pulled up Heroic now. Frost is at 28,000. Unholy's at 44,000.
Yeah.
So quite a bit more popular, like you're saying, which obviously the higher parses you're going to see, there's going to be a bit more of a top to bottom. So it's going to pull those numbers apart a bit more from those that are really performing well to those that are just sort of chugging along. So that's still a huge difference in, wow.
Have a look at Ashara Mythic and look at passes there and see what people play, because I feel like that's going to be heavily skewed towards
it's
Frost.
very heavily Frost.
Like actual parses, we do have, where are we at here? Unholy has 56, Frost is 312.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite a bit, probably factor higher for Frost, yeah. Well, I know that we have, even just in my guild, we have a Frost DK and a Havoc Demon Hunter that do the burst, or Frost and a Ret Pally that do the burst, those kind of things. So it's like two of those together. But yeah, you get the whole lining up there for sure. It just works because there's no setup time for Unholy, which is going to be a part of the show here. We'll talk about that. There's definitely a ramping and setup versus versus Frost, like pop 2 cooldowns, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which we talked about on the Frost show those couple of months ago, which is actually kind of where you guys had issues with the whole cooldown, awkward desync stacking, but that was beta feedback, so we'll see how Shadowlands changes that. But so are there any big shifts or potential highlights for patch 8.3 you guys are talking about or looking at, though? Biceps, just go back to you, because you might be digging into this stuff right now with like corrupted gear and the weapons, because obviously Unholy gets one big two-hander versus Frost eventually is going to be able to dual wield 2 corrupted weapons. I know it's 50 corruption, but once the cloak levels up enough and your neck...
I honestly don't know that much about Unholy. I know that there might be a switch towards doing vision as a Azeroth essence. I know that there's a Frost is more interesting because there's like, we figure out there might be a meme build where you simply just spam Frost Scythe.
Oh no.
It's quite funny because Frost Scythe scales a lot with crit. So if you do a crit heavy build, especially now that we might run Ice Cap, especially with the crit damage, as crit damage corrupted stuff, it might actually be better. Just how it scales. We'll see how it goes because we haven't really been able to test lots of corrupted stuff yet.
Well, one of the other things to take into account too is that they have that 10 extra idol levels on the last 2 bosses' gear, and Unholy actually has Bis Azerite from those bosses, whereas Frost does not have Bis traits in any of the Azerite from Nyalotha.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And also the Unholy weapon comes from those last bosses, so that the item level of that weapon is a little bit higher. But yeah, I do think that Vision, at least in single target, is going to become the go-to major instead of Condensed Life Force, just because of the nerf. That was a pretty hefty nerf.
Do you think that they're gonna also change? Like, we're gonna see more of a movement towards Army of the Damned as well?
I don't know. Like,
possibly.
Unholy Frenzy is so good.
Yeah.
Like,
it is.
It's good
a bit
in
weird.
both single target and AoE.
There's an interesting thing because generally Unholy Frenzy is really good with Vision because that makes it align properly with Apocalypse. So like you don't lose that usual thing we need to save Unholy Friends for Apocalypse. But since the Azeroth neck is gaining more levels, it would actually desync it further because Apocalypse will be so low cooldown that you have to wait with Apocalypse a little bit. So it's a bit weird. It's not necessarily so that Army of the Damned scales nicely with Vision, because Unholy Frenzy actually synergizes as well with it.
Yeah, I think.
also-
Oh, go ahead.
You also run into the problem too, where Army of the Damned, the more you have to play off boss, like if you have any downtime in the fight, Army of the Damned is worse.
Correct, yeah.
And
we know-
like Army of the Damned is very influenced by kill time. Like if you just get that second army off, that's a huge
Yeah.
like increase compared to Unholy Frenzy. Whereas like if you're gonna be almost getting a third but not getting it, then that's a pretty big loss as well. So it's heavily influenced by fight time.
Yes.
That's the weird part about when you look at progression, though, is because some of these encounters might be bangers, right? I know that early, I don't know, Cistara, did you do Carapace and Azoth testing? Like the 10+ minute Shaw of Fear flashbacks were coming back from when I was watching Jack or Slooty do streaming testing. I was like, okay.
Oh yeah, but I mean, it looks like such a good fight, but
well, Carapace does. Azoth.
Oh yeah, no, I think Carapace is the better boss overall.
Yeah.
All right.
But I'm saying longer fights, you get more your major cooldown off. That's why.
Yeah. Well, especially like once you get into long-term fight, like 10+ minute fights with like Army of the Damned, you're looking at like 3-4 armies, and like if that can sync up with burst windows for like boss phases and things like it can. I mean, there's definitely use for it, and we're definitely going to see change-ups going into 8.3 for DK. It's just a matter of, I almost think it'll be fight by fight dependent as to whether you'll want to play Frost or Unholy.
I agree with that.
Now, to play Unholy, fight by fight. But this raid looks very Blood DK forward, so how many of you are going to be forced to play Blood Death Knight as that third tank or swing tank, though? Because that's definitely...
I think you'll only see Blood DK on like 2 fights, I would imagine.
2?
Yeah. I think there's so, like, Grip is only that much better on 2 fights specifically, excuse me. And they're so far behind mitigation from Brewmasters or even Prot Warriors or basically every other tank. Like, their physical mitigation is just so abysmal that it's not worth bringing.
I think there is like a ton of magic damage, which does hurt a class like Prot Warrior, but the overall tank balance seems to be pretty even. Like Vengeance is getting, they can run Vision Major to be extremely tanky, and like Visions is getting buffed, whereas it's terrible for Blood. But it like, I don't know. I think you might see Blood, but I would expect not frequently. Because like on the Hive Mind was like one example where I was like, okay, I'm gonna be third tank here. But you could just have the raids. Yeah, you could just have the raids stack and they fixate in, so you don't really need a grip. So I don't know. I'm not completely convinced about Blood yet.
That's the different. Just different opinion I've heard from either hearing it from streams or like Mike Preach just made his video the other day about all of his testing coagulated into one place, and he was giving Blood huge praise, and he was sort of echoing what my Vengeance Demon Hunter guest just said a few weeks back about how Vengeance might also see a big jump in like second to third tank priority, but Mike was saying that 2-3 Blood DKs could cover certain fights if Gorfiends is like the big deal, but that depends. All different guilds are going to see different things. Like you both just said, you've seen different things. What's the star you had? Something?
Yeah, no, I mean, it all just kind of circles back to the kind of argument that we've been making, which kind of ties in later to the show, giving DPS DK's Gorfiends back, and then you don't have to have all of us respect Blood for every fight that requires a grip.
Oh no, this cars it. Yeah.
Gorfiend.
What's going on?
Just give it back.
Just give it back. Well, so that brings me to Star. I'm going back to you on this one because you may be the reigning DK old man in this discussion. Is going back through the roots of the Death Knight, and it's going to change. You guys are getting a new starting experience soon because you're gonna get your actual new Lich Kingy boy, not Lich King anymore. Spoilers, Shadowlands scenario, but that's supposed to take place before the cinematic that starts with Shadowlands. And so it's been since Wrath. You had this original situation, started at level 55, right? Level through that whole thing, basically get plooped out, almost level 60. That's going to change in Shadowlands, restructuring of how the leveling is going to go. I think you'll start at like 20 or something. I wonder how they confirm that or not. But Wrath to Cataclysm to Mist of Pandaria to Warlords to Legion to Battle for Azeroth, soon to be Shadowlands. The first hero class of 2, I guess, in World of Warcraft's history. How do you think the dev journey of the Death Knight is gone? So are there things that you're doing right now in BFA that are working out well, like the wound quality of life stuff? Do you miss the old rune system? Give me your sort of breadcrumb thoughts on the journey of the Death Knight.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think DK has been overall pretty good as a journey, like as a whole. There's been quite a few variations of all the specs really that have existed that have been extremely fun to play. Looking back to things like Armor Pen Frost in ICC, Master Frost, you had Two-Handed Frost, you had Arbiter Unholy in Legion, you had Breath of Sindragosa Unholy in Warlords of Draenor, you had Breath of Sindragosa Blood in Warlords of Draenor. Like, you had these periods that were just extremely fun to play. As a DK, you had Nighthold Frost. Legion Frost in general was just extremely fun to play. But overall, it's been extremely fun through basically every expansion up until now, I would say, where this is probably the most boring or most figured out form of DK that has existed basically ever, I would say, other than like Machine Gun Frost, maybe, which is just dead simple.
Yeah.
The wound system, I've had mixed feelings about. On AoE, it works pretty well, I think, with Bursting Swords and IC and things like that. On single target, it just seems kind of like filler. So I'd like to see changes to that. Maybe more of a change back to Arbiter, like it was in Legion. And then the old rune system, I would prefer, honestly. The current one, I mean, it works and it feels smoother from an average player standpoint, but it kind of removes a lot of the skill ceiling of the class in general, which is something I liked in previous expansions. So I'd like to see kind of a return to that. Maybe not the full Frost Unholy Blood, but something similar to the Frost one that they had, which was 2 Death, 2 Frost, and 2 Unholy.
Right.
And you could kind of like play around that and game the rune system a little bit to generate which runes you wanted and things like that. I think that gave a lot to the spec in like Cataclysm and things like that. So, yeah.
That's the follow up. I was going to throw this to Tzo, because you've only been playing for essentially just Legion, which was artifacts and legendaries and spec fantasy, right? And now Shadowlands would be back to like class fantasy, pulling some of that, like, because right now there are essentially 36 classes in World of Warcraft. I think Blizzard wants to tone that back a bit, but you've had a more shortened journey. So how does it feel when you went from Legion and all this stuff to BFA?
So I think the main mechanic of wounds, like in AoE, I really like it. And it feels super powerful. Honestly, it's one of the better feelings out of any class that I currently play. Is like you feel like, okay, I have a ton of wounds out. I'm just about to like, let's go. This trash pack's getting deleted. But in single target, the mechanic of wounds is more, I'm giving you a reason to press Festering Strike and Scourge Strike, and nothing else. Yeah. Whereas that's kind of what old runes did. Because I was like more casual back then, but I still enjoyed the mechanic of there were different reasons to press Festering Strike and Scourge Strike rather than just applying a wound, and basically having a extra resource that you have to keep track of. Even though it's very static and boring on single target.
Right.
So I think maybe changing that a bit would be like welcome, whether it's going back to the old rune system or something similar, or maybe having a talent to where in AoE you get wounds and then you could just burst them, or maybe making Unholy more disease focused, so that
Oh yeah.
Festering Strike increases the duration of your disease or something. Like there are a lot of ideas that could work for Unholy. I just think that wounds could be improved going forward.
Okay. Yeah, that's the like the little cliff notes I had here, and I guess then Bicep, keep us going with that. Then, are there any major pieces of the past? Because you just said it and you were chanting it. What are the major pieces of the past then that you would love to see come back to either Unholy specifically or just the Death Knight kit in general?
I feel like Gorefiend is an obvious one. I like that they're going to bring back. Maybe not the obvious. Mirror Ball is also something which is like really nice. At least when it comes to utility. Yes, AMC coming back is lovely. Having a raid call is always nice. I feel like, generally being a disease-focused spec instead of being, as it is in single target, some passive, pets that you don't control spec would be very nice, Generally, if we were a melee dot spec, it would bring a lot more value in a raid. We know that all the dot classes are generally, they always have these fights where they pop off. If you were kind of like Legion, we were quite good as a actual dot spec. We had some power in our virulent play. And, necrotic play before that. That was really nice. I would love if that became more of a thing. Become that melee dotter.
Well, that's
something I would like to see returned.
I think that was the sort of the point that came up during the Frost show at some point by saying Frost is very much just like chunk with like damage over time, right? With like Remorseless Winter and Breath of Syndragosa. Not really a dot, you're like a walking AoE. But
yeah,
when you talk about dots like that, that makes it sound kind of Feral Druid-ish. And Feral Druid, as they talked about on their show, have a similar issue with being a melee dot spec, but it doesn't really, because they're combo point based. So that's the difference, I guess.
I mean, more like a disease. We could spread dots nicely before. When we had necrotic play, we could spread with blood dot boil, and now we can spread it, passively with outbreak. As long as that is part of it, so that I would like you apply a dot to target, and then you can spread it to everything else. I love that mechanic. I don't know if you remember in WUT, there was this dude where you got these hands that came up, and if you played Unholy, you could just stack off your necrotic plague, press blood boil, and you would just pop off insanely on that fight. And I love that feeling. Building something up and then taking advantage of that, spreading that in AoE.
Okay,
I like that. Yeah.
There's also something in here. I opened with it, but I was maybe Tzo, you can. It's called the Dark Arbiter. Is that pronounced correctly?
Dark Arbiter, yeah. So, it's the exact same mechanic as Summon Gargoyle is now, where basically you dump as much runic power into in that 30-second window, now 30 seconds, as humanly possible. So you're just spamming Death Coil if at all possible, or Epidemic if it's an AoE, and just to get really beefy casts that it does. I think it's Gargoyle Strike, but right now, so they nerfed it quite heavily. They nerfed it in like 3 ways going into BFA, to where it used to be 2 minutes, 20-second duration, and it was like 1% runic power is an increase in 1% of its DPS, whereas now it's like 3 minute, 30-second duration, and every 2% runic power is 1% increase in DPS. So it's quite heavily nerfed, and also with the increase in melee damage coming into BFA, which is terrible. Please change that for Unholy specifically. It doesn't do a lot of damage. Like, that's a cooldown. That's a 3-minute cooldown. Like, you could have Incarn, or you could have Infernal, where it's like, okay, you're gonna feel this. Whereas Gargoyle is like, it's there, it exists. It's like,
it deals like total 5% of your damage.
It's not a lot. Whereas
it feels like nothing.
In Legion, it was 20%, like the most damage you did with any ability by far.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird. I have a lot of opinions on this subject because Dark Arbiter was very near and dear to my heart in Legion, but it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. A lot of the changes that they made, because you had artifact weapons going away, which the artifact weapon for Unholy did so much for its kit. It gave it double doom. It gave it a lot of shadow damage, which buffed your mastery, which buffed all of your main abilities, which Arbiter. And then they take that away, so that's naturally going to nerf Arbiter as a talent and as an ability.
Correct.
And then they nerfed Arbiter on top of that. So it just kind of went from being this very fun talent and spec to play with and play around to something that's not even considered anymore.
Well, if
Also,
you think,
they removed Unholy Frenzy, all Unholy Frenzy, which gave you more attack
Yeah,
speed.
exactly.
Then
Yeah.
it gave you so much more DC procs.
Yeah,
but if you
and
think,
then-
if you think like on Ashara specifically, like that's a boss where it's like, oh, this is a frost fight. But if you had Unholy and you had like a Rep Paladin and like a Destro Warlock to take care of the ads, then
Yeah, if
if
you
it
had a
was the
2-minute
old-
Arbiter as Unholy, it'd
yeah,
be so
2-minute
good.
Arbor, you could destroy that second ad and the boss. Like that would be insane. And you would be very valuable in the fight. Whereas like now it's like, okay, you're just gonna
Well, and
use 1.5 minutes that aren't very potent, and good
Yeah.
luck.
It would also fix the issue of the last phase, like phase 4 Ashara for Frost and for Unholy. The difference is so staggering. Like if you have a Frost DK and they get the buff, they can extend breath that entire 40 seconds with no cooldowns, right? Which is going to do a lot of damage. And if you were Unholy, you get that haste, which would increase your Arbiter hits, and then you also have unlimited resources, so you could spam Death Coils into it, and it would just
Oh,
be
that would be
insane.
fun.
Yeah. But now, like right now, Unholy doesn't have anywhere near that. Like you get the buff as Unholy, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna spam Scourge Strike with no wounds. Like, okay.
There's a bit of an underpin in this conversation across the board that it feels like some of the Unholy hopes you have is to not be so, because right now obviously Mythic Plus and the AoE component of Unholy is ridiculous. And if you were here for the sort of the opening show banter before we went live, there's a lot of fun to play in that, not only skill ceiling, but those moment-to-moment gameplay moment with like tons of ridiculous AoE. But that's sort of what I remember having the same sort of problems with game balance back in Warlords when I played Enhancement as like the only thing I played back then with nothing splash like I do now with Fire Nova. And
Fire Nova is so fun.
if there was an encounter where I could AoE Fire Nova and spread my Flame Shocks, did tons of damage. If there wasn't,
Imperator Margok.
I was tank damage. So, right, exactly. Well, Iliao basically got enhancement nerfed because we told Blizzard this is going to do bad things, and they saw what Iliao did for the first Mythic Cho'Gall kill, and they were like, oh. But that's the same kind of problem, I think, that you come to this place where if Blizzard gives a spec an identity that's very much Unholy's in this case is super crazy cleave AoE focused. But then they really like got your option to at least tweak your playstyle because they tried to smooth out Arbiter to Gargoyle, like giving it longer cooldown, but like a little more ease of use and it lasts longer. But that's not burst. That's just rotational damage, really. Whereas Arbiter, which you, as Tzo Cistara just talked about, Arbiter was like, I'm going to hit this boss really hard right now. It's like current Fire Mage.
Yeah, where outside of Arbiter, you did, fairly minimal carry damage, like just a static amount of damage through the fight until your Arbiter came up, and then you spike again, and then average out again.
Yeah, but that's
it's one of those problems where like all of the I don't know any DK theory crafter that doesn't think bursting swords needs to be changed. Like it's obviously a problem in certain scenarios. I don't think you see that scenario as often as people would think you do. But our kind of major concern, I think, would be getting it nerfed and just not getting anything in, like anything for it. You know what I mean? Like just the spec just gets nerfed and we don't get anything out of it.
Yeah.
Ideally, I would think, or something I would prefer, is giving bursting swords like a target cap, changing Defile with Army of the Damned in that row, so swapping the talent rows, and then buffing Arbiter so that you can have a clear choice between AoE and single target. And you can do well at both. I think, well, a Defile would need a slight buff as well, but the Defile playstyle in Legion as an AoE playstyle worked very well, especially with the Legendary Helmet. So it's kind of, I want to see more give and take, more choice between the two, and not necessarily just so overpowered in one, but being able to switch between the two.
Okay. So that the the back and forth on this discussion then, things that you're looking forward to having back, how about then things in the current iteration that can just totally go? I think it's actually kind of funny as the opening to this when I was doing all of my testing for all the specs that I do, going from one expansion to another expansion, I nicknamed the all will serve little the shambler, the little archer buddy, Rasputin. And it's funny because I remember saying that he's going to be the best talent. Lo and behold, it's like the only talent you take in that row outside of maybe some infected claw splash. But this is the, what do you think just be removed? I don't know who has the first something should be removed.
Well, so
Tzo?
going down the talent row, I think
Or just
Clawing
anything in
Shadows.
general, right?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna like go down the talent row, and then maybe I think Clawing Shadows is a bit odd. Like, there's no need to make Unholy more ranged than what it is. Like, and even with like all will serve, your buddy is still shooting arrows from range.
Mhm.
Like, even if you're not in range, he's still gonna shoot arrows. There's no really need for Clawing Shadows. Doesn't really fill.
I still feel like it's quite a nice utility
It-
choice.
It is, but at the same time, it's like, what do you really want that? I don't
Yeah.
know. I could go
Yeah,
either. with that.
if our kit was more heavily skewed towards mastery for single target, it might be the better choice. So I don't see it as a dead talent
I-
per se.
Yeah, I don't think it's a dead talent. I think if you switched it rows, like I think if it was in Harbinger's place and Harbinger was on row 1 and Clawing was on
Yeah.
row 60,
That's fair. That's fair.
then I think you
Oh.
could put together builds with like Defile and Clawing Shadows like you did in Legion, and it would see some play. But I think where it currently is, it's just dead because between Infected and All Will Serve, you have no place for it in your play.
Yeah. And then Unholy Blight, like, if it was actually strong, maybe, but it also fills the same role as Even Fever, where your disease is going to be doing more, and it's just bad.
Yeah.
There's
Poor Unholy
and it
Blight.
costs
This
a
was
rune, and it
Yeah.
requires stuff to be super stacked up in that
Mhm.
window of every 45 seconds, and like that's not going to happen. If you look at like Queen's Court, you would want 2 diseases on both bosses, but that can't happen because, well, one, DK mobility, and getting to both spread bosses is not going to happen with that talent. So it's pretty, in my opinion, it's pretty dead.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit shame. Like it would have been nice if it was the sporadic ads talent. You get a couple ads once a minute or whatever, and then you use Unholy Blight because you can do a lot more damage to those ads. But currently, Ebon Fever does the same thing, and it still does more damage.
Make Unholy
Which is
Blight and play
undertuned.
wounds.
Well, that's the weird.
Ooh.
I think it's this kind of a conversation looking at talent design that is like this on multiple different classes or specs across the board. It's Ebon Fever is sort of the same thing that Feral Druids have with their bleeds ticking faster. Like those kind of scaling talents are always going to see way more use than just a button you press.
Yeah.
At like a higher end. And Unholy Blight used to be like the go-to when you talk about like the old Fester Blight combinations back in the day. It's like Warlord's time period, I want to say, where this talent carried builds. But I guess they would have wanted to get away from that. But again, this kind of a talent can't compare with just literally a damage hasting ability.
Yeah, and I think Old Blight was also just very different, and not to mention the diseases were different and the way Unholy did damage. So there's kind of a lot of mechanics playing into that that make it not nearly as good as it used to be.
It's true. But yeah, anything else? I mean, you can keep going on this. There's a lot of back and forth on what you guys think should be.
Yeah, I mean,
removed.
Unholy Blight either needs to be removed or reworked entirely. It just doesn't it doesn't have a place.
Yeah, it needs to get
row
buffed.
Yeah, row 58, I think they're all honestly good talents and very situational. I've
I'd
used
say
all
so.
of them.
Mhm.
The only issue is Death's Reach is pretty buggy sometimes. Like you don't always get the reset, and it's just killing
Oh.
blows in general. It's kind of a buggy mechanic in relation to talents. I know Warriors have had similar issues throughout the expansion.
Well,
But that whole row is great.
Does the community at large know there are 2 different determining factors that Blizzard has coded in for killing blows?
Right. One is like the actual like hit that deals the kill, and then one is like if you've tagged it in the last X seconds. Or
With
whatever.
before it dies, because that's a warlock
Yeah.
forgiveness window that they've built into certain effects. But you never know
Yeah.
which effect
Okay.
is the if you kill it and it
I didn't know
dies for
that.
your hit. Yeah, your hit kills it is a killing blow. Duh, like PvP, killing blows. That's the traditional one. But because of Warlocks, I think because of mostly Affliction and Legion, they've made one now that if you've done damage to X mob within so many seconds of it dying, that also counts as a killing blow, even if you don't get the killing blow.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. But the Death Reach itself is on the actual killing blow, which is, in my opinion, not very great. Now, if you had it resetting like on if you've done damage to a target in the last 1 second, then we would be getting, death grips so often. So you need a balance there. But
Yeah.
Well,
you know,
it's also not only is it killing blow, it's only killing blows that reward experience or honor. So there's some mobs that you can do in a boss fight that like won't do it even if you do get the killing blow and things like that,
Right.
which is kind of an issue. That's the main thing that I'd want to see fixed, is remove the requirement there that you can, game the system. I'm going to grip this ad over here, get the killing blow, and then grip the other ad and things like that.
it's true. Yeah, a little bit, but that's a good tier. I mean, I'm not only going through like talents though. Is there anything like, because the notes that I have here is your current reliance on the Festermite Azerite came up to me as a question about how should that be just should that be just a core gameplay loop in the future or removed completely?
Yeah, no, I honestly I love Festermite. I think it adds a lot of ways to play around the spec. Like it gives you so much more ways that like the good players can like play around it and show their knowledge of the spec, of like ramping on ads for when they die and then tunneling a single target and things like on Orgoza, for example. I think it needs to be just a core play mechanic of Unholy.
I also feel like it's such a essential part of the current kit that it does feel like it should be there always. It's also so good, so like you always want Azeroth. So pretty much always everybody runs 3 of it. So why shouldn't it then be just a part of the kit?
I think so as long as wounds exist, I think Festermite is a very nice addition to
it is.
Unholy. But if wounds don't exist, then
obviously
one, I don't know how you're gonna have Festermite, and 2, there's no real gameplay there anymore. So because you can't like snipe wounds on a target for like to snipe Festermite stacks or anything in Mythic Plus, and you don't have to like pay attention to your Festermite windows and when you're going from pack to pack in Mythic Plus, stuff like that. So you'd lose that gameplay if no wounds exist.
Okay.
If ever wounds became a talent, Festermite should be included there.
Yeah, agree.
But that might be very, very long text on a single talent. So I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
So then end cap me here, because I know it has to be at least spoken in the possible remove section. Pestilence, keep it or yeet it? Because that's
I think it should be that. Like currently, it's a niche play, which can be situational good, which is something you want. It's a bit weird because it's kind of like misleading because the text says something and the spell doesn't do that. Like it's kind of capped in how many wounds it can generate. So you might think that okay, every time it ticks and the target gives a 10% chance. No, it can only give you a single wound per tick overall. So you have like 40 targets. You would expect something on average like 4 wounds every time Death and Decay ticks, but you only get 1. And then it's capped at like 10 wounds total.
That's
so if you have 100
weird.
targets, I don't know what's going on. We tested it quite a lot. When islands used to have loads of targets, we ran into an island, pulled like 60 mobs, put down Death and Decay, and saw how many wounds we got, and we did not get a lot of wounds. But I talked to people that ran a really high level Mythic Plus, where you have instances where you don't pick Epidemic because it's not necessary. You need to use Death Calls to get that reduction in Dark Transformation, because Dark Transformation is so damn powerful when it comes to dealing AoE damage. You also need Pestilence, or you want Pestilence to do funneling of bosses with ads. We got a boss with ads, you put down Pestilence, you get wounds from the ads, you get Festermite, that gets followed into the boss, which is nice to get that increase in single target damage, especially on Tyrannical and stuff like that.
I'd say it has its place, but also the majority of the people, even in like the MDI, I think Epidemic would have done better. Either if it was like lack of practice around an Unholy DK, or like lack of like playing an Unholy DK normally. Like they don't main the spec, so where like the polls they weren't super concrete, like you might see in live keys, where this pack's going to be dead in 12 seconds. Okay, I'm not going to get epidemics off, so that's not needed. I could go pestilence, but it is a very niche talent.
Okay.
One thing they could just remove is Defile, because that never sees played.
Just
Like,
in
it's
its
single
current
boss
row.
six
In its
expansion.
current row, yeah.
Yeah, in its current iteration, I think Defile is not nearly as good as it could be. I mean, you could maybe merge Pestilence and Defile and then like buff Defile's damage slightly, and I think you would see,
Yeah.
or
That
give
would
it the
work out.
mastery stacking back. Like that's the
Oh,
thing with Defile, not the greatest.
Currently, it's completely dead. It's not a upgrade anywhere.
It's such a thematic ability too, like because obviously
sad,
yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
so cool.
Yeah.
well, like the Frost Death Knight side gets, the Syndragosa stuff and just the different rune-oriented Frost Blasts. And a lot of the flair in Unholy is just all your pets you summon, right? Which they've nailed now.
Yeah.
The issue is that Defile is like one of those extra pieces of that puzzle. Is standing in that goo via Arthas. It just slowly creeps and creeps and creeps and creeps. And then it goes away for a while and then it comes right back. It's that extra layer of spreading gunk and decay that I think it just needs to, because when you drop death and decay, that's very like old school, like not schooled Death Knight. Feels very blood decay potentially.
Yeah,
just like the red poofy ground. You're like, okay, sure.
You could even just give Unholy Defile baseline and then make Death
Sure.
and Decay
I
blood
just
only.
thought about that.
And,
Why wouldn't
I think
be?
that I mean it fits the spec theme and it works, and that would free up another talent row there that you could
mean,
rework
there's
an existing talent or something.
The little extra unpacking there, at least as I go off of what Halinka said at BlizzCon, is they want to more unify things across your class. So DK should just have Defile as the baseline interaction, and then it could just be glyphed to look
I think
differently.
Frost is getting Death and Decay next expansion. I think they've talked about that already.
Oh, so they're going to Death and Decay you baseline.
Yeah,
I see.
which doesn't really make a lot of sense, because if you think about it, Death and Decay is just a ticking AoE, and Frost already has a ticking AoE in Remorseless Winter. So it's like, is it ever actually going to be cast, or are they just doing it for unification?
Could be utility spell too, though, right? Could have like the slow component on there or something along those lines. Like,
well, the slow is talented, so for Frost, you would never
true.
get the slow unless they add to that as a talent. So
we don't know.
It's kind of up in the air at the moment.
Yeah. So Cistara, last follow-up question on this one before we get into the big flagship question of this entire show. So if you could change one part of your rotation tomorrow, if you could email Ian and be like, change this, well, you'd email Halinka now, but change the rotation of Unholy Death Knight for tomorrow, what would you change and why? If it's like a DPS-oriented thing, rotation-based, or are you going to use your one card to bring back Arbiter? What would you do right now? One thing, boom.
I would, Arbiter, 100%. Arbiter or Breath of Syndragosa. They both play the same role of making a burst single target, but either of those would be great.
Okay. Tzo, what about you?
Army 8-minute cooldown is terrible. Please give us a way to either one, have a shorter cooldown baseline, or like make Army the Damned baseline. An 8-minute cooldown to use once a fight, and that's where all of your damage goes into. You can't place that cooldown in different parts of a fight. That it just removes the ability to kind of be like, oh, I'll use my cooldowns here, we'll be fine, and then I'll use them later and we'll be fine. Like, you get to pick one spot, and there you go. That's your cooldowns for the boss. If it's not during last, rip your damage.
Sounds something like along the lines of a gargoyle should act like Arbiter and be 2-minute long cooldown, and then Army of the Dead should just be a 3-minute cooldown and do some damage, but be more like the flavor cooldown.
Yeah, I think that's a fair trade-off. And also, I want Arbiter as a or like the old Dark Arbiter. So
right. And then Bicep, what's your one thing?
I would bring back the legendary shoulders from Legion. There is currently no interaction at all with your pets. You press it and forget it. And Dark Transformation is like not a cooldown on a single target. It's boring. I feel like bringing back Dark Transformation as a pet buff would both make Dark Transformation actually worth pressing, or feel like it's worth pressing a single target, and give you that feeling of actually controlling your damage. It's quite a large issue at the moment that so much of your damage is passive or unholy. Like you press your
Right.
stuff, you do your rotation, and your rotation doesn't really matter. Like it doesn't do much.
Depending on your trinkets and your Azerite, you can have up to like 60 or 70% of your damage just be passive buttons.
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes just from auto attacking with a giant two-hander now, like what Tzo said earlier.
And army and trinket procs and essence and
Well,
it's all just
that's like their motto going into BFA was, okay, we're gonna make auto attacks matter more, when like you should really rethink that for pet specs. Like I don't know about BM specifically, but like there's a lot of passive damage coming there.
Yeah.
I think BM is like 60% pet damage right now or something like that.
I think it's fine to have that as long as you interact with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, if you have control of it, if you look, Dark Arbiter, you are actually
like
increasing that damage.
Show Wrath.
Yeah. It feels like you are doing that damage, but if it's just a button you press and that's 70% of your damage, it wouldn't really feel that way. You don't really interact with it. You don't do anything with it.
Alrighty then. So this is the time for the old 1-2. There's two specs. That's as far as this joke goes. So Tzo, I'm going to you on this one first, just to get the pot or the kettle boiling. What the heck? And there's actually apparently another one that Biceps said at the start. But what the heck is quadratic AOE scaling? Or just that whole terminology in relationship to the Unholy Death Knight? What does that mean? What?
Well, that's referring to a quadratic formula, which is, you're going to have exponential growth of, like, whether it's numbers, which in this case it is. So you're going to have exponential scaling up to a point. And Biceps was kind of saying earlier, I could let him go into it, but exponential growth up to a point, and then once you reach, as far as I know, all AOE effects in the game, maybe there are some that aren't like this, but they have a 20 target cap of some sort. So once you get to that limit, then it's going to be linear scaling afterwards, with wounds and bursting swords and everything. But yeah, I could let Biceps go into like cubic scaling and stuff.
Also, that's what I meant. Yeah, Biceps, take it away.
Oh, okay. So there are a couple of things in our kit which makes us scale, not like other specs. Usually if you have a spec, you do an AoE spell. If you hit 2 targets, then you hit 4 targets, you're going to do double damage. You hit 8 targets again, it's going to double again, and so on. So if you hit 20 targets, you will do twice as much damage as if you hit 10 targets. For Unholy, we got spells that scale in another way. So if you hit 10 targets and then we move to 20 targets, we don't deal double the damage. We deal 4 times the damage. We deal 8 times the damage, something like that. It just scales much, much heavily than other specs. There's this very nice interaction with how our wounds and bursting swords scale when we increase targets. We have this infected claws talent. It causes our pet to apply wounds in AoE. That wound application, that scales linearly with number of targets. If we double the number of targets, we did double the number of wounds. The wounds also burst in AoE, which means that every wound would hit all the targets around it. So if you double the amount of targets, we get double the amount of hits. Double number of targets with double number of hits, you multiply that together, it turns quadratic. All right. Furthermore, we've got Festamite, which increases our strength, which also scales with how many wounds we pop. So, we got 30 stacks of that would double our strength, which pretty much doubles our damage. So we get all these factors that we multiply together, which just makes our damage, go off so much when we reach high target counts. Which is why we see like 1-2 million DPS in the MDI.
Is Unholy the highest AoE damage in the game right now? With like, I'm not gonna say obviously you pull like 50 mobs together, there's gonna be some dumb numbers. But standard
I would
styles
say
of
that we
pulls.
scale better than any other class at the moment. As
I
Zoe
don't,
mentioned, we also scale past 20.
I don't
Okay,
think
most
any
classes.
class, any class currently, other than Unholy, I don't think anyone can come close.
No. The other
As long as you're
classes
running
that
Infected Claws, Bursting Source.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
there are similar behaviors, like Living Bomb will behave in the same way. Okay, the damage from Living Bomb will scale quadratically with number of targets, but Unholy has its as such a large part of its kit, and it scales in a way that I don't think Living Bomb would be close at. The above 20 targets is also important. It comes from the fact that Infected Claws does not have a target cap. So even though if we increase the targets past 20, we will get more wounds. All right. When the wounds burst, there's this thing which makes it so that all damage past 20 targets is split down so that the damage equals 20 targets hit, kind of. So, you have 20 targets, you do 100 total damage. If you had 40 targets, you will still do 100 damage, right? It doesn't scale past that. But if we double down amount of wounds, right, which deals this, constant 20 target damage, we still increase our damage overall. That doesn't happen for other specs, which is why we continue scaling.
Now, is that something that Blizzard has? I would imagine that would not be something they've neglected to do. Should Unholy abide by the same crazy AoE scaling rules as everyone else, though? Granted, you're not pulling 40 mobs that often, just to put it in perspective.
It's a very niche
but,
scenario. As we see it, it's not like it breaks the game. It's not like Unholy is the absolute master of Mythic Plus. We see it in MDI, because MDI is a very controlled environment with good players that know how to play and how to take advantage of it. In the actual game, you play with Unholy, sure they do a lot of damage, but it's not like they be like, oh, this is the most insane Mythic Plus spec ever. They need to be enabled. They need to be played around. There's a high skill cap to playing an Unholy properly. You see in the MDI, I saw this very nice freehold run where they do double Unholy. They pull like loads of trash, they pop up Dark Transformation, to stack up loads of wounds, pull that into a boss, burst it all, and you get this insane burst from Unholy. You can't see that. Like, I do Pogs in Mythic Plus, good luck seeing that happen. It won't, which is why Unholy is not.
You're not going to pull a whole room in a pug.
No, right. But then the counter of that, because this sort of all wraps to Tzo Cistara, because you've literally lived in this Mythic Plus situation. You've seen the rise and then somewhat fall of the Outlaw Rogue, and you can go back to the Outlaw Rogue show earlier on in the 2019 season of my show. We talked about that. They were way too strong, and they even asked for nerfs. Like, they were ready for this to happen, and Blizzard did it like 3 times because they were just too good, too reliant. Shroud's too strong. Their CC's too good. Interrupts are too good. But then we see the final, not like the final nail in the coffin for Outlaw, because they still are totally good. They're just not busted. The counter to that point right now, though, is that Tzo Cistara Unholy AoE is kind of busted, right?
Yeah, I mean it's broken, but it's kind of like, in what scenarios is it broken, right? Like, it's broken in very niche ways that doesn't affect the average population. And I think most DKs would agree that it needs to be changed. We just don't want to see it get absolutely gutted and get nothing in return.
Yeah.
Right.
I honestly think that even though it's so nice, Unholy as a class, other than that, is that not very great. And you can see that in the Mythic Plus representation. If we were busted, would we not see a higher representation?
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like, if you take that away from Unholy, what do they have? Like, would you ever see them again in MDI? Probably not.
No.
I think also, it doesn't require only an Unholy. It requires a tank that is going to 100% not die in a pull, a healer that is going to keep both of them alive because you're going to pull threat. And it takes your entire group to play around that. Even MDI pulls, you see them fail, and then that's a ripped key. That was all of their stuff, all of their cooldowns, everything going into that pull. And if they fail it, they're done.
It's very high risk, high reward.
Yeah, extremely high risk, high reward.
I completely understand if they nerf it, but I don't think it's necessary in a way. It doesn't break the game.
Okay.
Yeah, agreed.
So, again, So, Sarah, for the final follow-up, and then you two can chime in as well if you have anything different to go on this. So that all being said, for Death Knight players, you sort of have a teeter-totter of sorts here. You have Frost, you have Unholy, right? You're not a mage, you're not a rogue hunter or a warlock. You have the same problem like Fury and Arms Warrior have, which next week's show, well, next week is Balance Druid and then Fury Warrior. So we'll kind of get back to this kind of discussion then, because they have the same sort of teeter-totter. How do Death Knight players sort of decide to play whichever spec? Because do you just versatilely just change, like if you know this build's coming up and this is being buffed, is it math determination? Is it just based on your pure aesthetics for what you want to play? Obviously, there's like Weapon and Azerite that involve in that, but outside of that, in a vacuum, do you just show up one day as Frost and show up the next day as Unholy? Do you spec for every other boss fight that's better for this, that the Death Knight in that sense, or you just stay one and just write it out? So Cistara, from your higher end perspective, how does that work?
Yeah, there's a few school of thoughts, right? So schools of thought rather. So you can either just play what's good or what's best. So for example, in like Antorus, right, which was probably the last time that I played Frost and Unholy other than this tier, which I can get into. I would just switch based on the fight. So like I would play Unholy on maybe Argus, and I would play Frost on like Veramathras, and like that. I would just switch based on whatever was good or whatever the fight catered towards. And that's even, isn't even class dependent, it's just what's good. On the other hand, if you're not playing at a huge like world first level, which I'm not even doing, just play what you enjoy, right? So like people enjoy Frost, they like playing machine gun, play that. If you want to play Unholy, play that. But yeah, it as far as I know, most DKs I know that switch actively just do it based on the fight needs and whatever's better.
Okay. Biceps, do you agree, disagree? What is you just play Warrior and Classic right now, right?
Yes, I don't play a lot of retail, but I'm one of those people that find it quite. I feel strongly about people playing the spec they actually want to play. I hate being forced to play something I don't want to play. Right? I used to be like an Unholy only guy in Legion. I played Unholy for the entirety of Nighthold. Okay, and trust me, it was really bad. But I felt like I really liked this. I'm gonna play it anyway. Everybody play Frost. I play Unholy. At the moment, when I played retail, I usually just spec Unholy because I love playing Unholy Mythic Plus. So I kind of just run with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I don't min-max that much that I would just swap between boss and I like, if you perform 99% on your class in logs, you're probably going to be better than someone, performing 80% on another one. So if you're good at what you do, you can just play the class you want to play.
Yeah. On the flip side, I keep gems and enchants like 20 at a time in my bags to switch between each spec depending on the boss. So.
Tzo, do you do that?
So I put a lot of thought into it, and we're going into a new tier. I've been testing because right now Frost is good. So far, no changes for DK. So at least going into the next tier, you're going to have the current trinkets and stuff. Because they're broken for both Frost and Unholy. So I've been testing as Unholy and trying to see where you can fit certain like cooldowns or like what essence like vision majors looking to be good, and like, hey, like is this actually going to do a substantial amount of damage so that maybe Unholy is going to be better, and also looking at like the blast boss drops higher or better Azerite for Unholy, and like looking at like where weapons drop also goes into like, okay, I'm probably going to be blank for this tier, just based on that logic. And then boss by boss scenario is like, this one's like, if I was Unholy all tier for this for Eternal Palace, and then I got to Ashara, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going Frost because Frost is busted right now. So
there are so many factors that go into what is the better spec to play. Like, it is very difficult to gauge that before a raid comes out. You know,
I feel like DK players, at least in recent times, I'm not sure about pre-Legion, but it's more you almost not have to, but if you want to be like one of the 20 in Mythic rating, then you almost have to be able to like flex to both and play whatever's best on a given fight, because you're not a demon hunter where they have broken utility, broken utility, broken utility, and broken damage. So we don't have that. You kind of have to like bring the damage. Yeah.
Okay. I guess the last bit that I have here, I'm just prepping stuff for the break. It's a very important discussion. All right. Everything we've talked about before up to this point, not that bad. But the real question, as I said at the start of the step back in time start of the show, Death Knights are under a very big change soon. That big change is that in Shadowlands, and presumably the pre-patch, you'll be able to play a Death Knight of any race or allied race in the entirety of the game. So hands up if we're going Volpera. This includes you, chat, and YouTube comments.
Hands up! I'm going.
Your hands up, yeah. So you can go any race in the game as Death Knight for the Shadowlands, which I'm assuming is part of the new, Bolvar Lich King story before Sylvanas walks up and slaps him around a little bit, where he basically is making a new Death Knight army to help combat this new threat. There is some interesting math, if you want to put math behind it, that you guys have put together. You give me 2 different sims. Now, it's not totally done yet, even though the Volpera one is just like a 90-minute cooldown. You just throw something at them for attack power. But there's something funny here. We talk about how you guys are very AoE focused, and a lot of AoE fans are out there for how big that is a big part of the unholy niche. Lightforged Draenei. First off, doesn't make any sense in the lore, because you're a dead, undead, Death Knight, light-forged Draenei. It's fine. But light-forged Draenei laser beam, pretty good, apparently.
Yeah, well, and actually, with that sim, that's not even using the Infected Claws versus Source build, so it should... keyword should be even farther ahead than what it is there as far as like total damage done.
Is it flat damage or does it scale off?
It's off of
attack power.
Yeah.
So
it does. So it scales with Festermite.
Yeah. So that's the logic I used in the sim was that you want to use it at the end of your Festermite window. And if you're running Infected Claws and you get that 30 stack Festermite, you're going to you're going to delete packs, if you get that. And similar, not really for Frost, because Pillar's only 15% increase, whereas Festermite's a lot more. But it looks really good in AoE. The problem arises is like, do you need more AoE?
Right.
Generally,
and that's So that's the question that yeah, exactly. I don't know. Honestly, it's like it could be a thing in the MDI where you take it as a safety measure of this pack is dead. So
as long as Shadow Meld exists, you will never run Lightforged.
Yeah,
guaranteed.
The thing is with Unholy, and like when we pick stuff that deals AoE, is that we don't do that, and we take that choice specifically. And when you run Mythic Plus, we like to run Festermite for the AoE, and then we run Margus, and Margus is like a pure single target trait. And we picked that to get the versatility of being able to do single target burst and AoE burst. We could pick stuff that, Hell Chains, that's AoE, right? So why would we pick it? We don't need it, right? We got the AoE, we need other, if you just run in as a pure AoE dude, and then you do shit single target damage, that's going to be really bad for keys.
I think it depends. Right? It goes back to a little bit. I talked about this starting when the new seasons were coming up, and BFA was changing that. Because if you're doing like fortified keys, like all 2, if not all 3 of your DPS are going to go all just big monkey AoE pulls. But then if you're pushing like 20 plus keys, bosses are still not going to be super simple. So do you run 2 full AoE boys, 1 boss damage boy, right? Is there like a and then tyrannical keys, do you all go boss damage with, or maybe 2 boss damage, 1 full AoE monkey boy? Like, what do you can kind of change that. So the whole question of, do you need more AoE? Maybe, but
yeah, I feel like it's a very difficult question actually, how you value different damage types in Mythic Plus. Okay, even though, you know, imagine you do an AoE pack, or you do like 100k more DPS on that pack. You know, if that pack lasts 20 seconds, that might not actually translate into a lot of one, you know, time, right? It maybe took it 2 seconds less. But if you do 20k more DPS on a boss, that might save you a minute. So it's not like it's very difficult to quantify overall, but it's not always that, you know, more overall DPS means a shorter key.
Right. And I wanted
which
to,
is why you can do these kind of choices where you don't actually run full AoE.
I wanted to like button hook that a bit by saying that our numbers are going to go up substantially in the patch, and obviously certain racials like the laser beam for Lightforge obviously scales off your base strength and versatility, I think. But when we're doing 60,000 DPS like smoothly with corrupted gear, your racial adding 1,400 or 1,500, kind of a drop in the bucket. It's not really like a big deal. It's just kind of there. Depends on when you use it, though.
So
I think it's target. I'd take a 1% increase any time. You know?
Yeah.
I think like racials are still very utility oriented. Like if you look at not even the damage portion that like Blood Elf adds to Frost, because it's absurd. But looking at like the utility of it, if you need, you know, that utility, it's very strong. Same for like Cistara mentioned, Shadow Meld. It's brokenly OP for Mythic Plus, and also like PvP. So like I don't think you're necessarily locked by the DPS increases of racials, especially like Lightforged, where I don't think you really gain anything else other than just damage, where you could, you know, potentially take something else that's going to be more of a utility option for maybe slightly less damage.
Right. Right. Or just go Mechanome because reasons.
I don't know.
I mean, Mechanome tanks. I am Mechanome. What is it? Monks are probably going to see a very quick swap because that extra cheat death on it's like a pseudo cheat death on a class that doesn't have one normally. It's a huge heal, especially on big health pool boys. You can time that. I don't know. There's some shenanigans with Mechanomes. You can kind of see Blizzard trying to like nudge Horde players into like, there's some really good racials over here. You should race. I mean, I hate these racials, but whatever.
If they did like a mass sale on server transfers, so all the top Horde guilds could go at the same time. I don't think anyone's staying Horde for the racials, really.
Not anymore.
It's
like
it's the roster. It's the people who are on that side because they went multiple expansions ago.
All my friends are here because we came here to expansion back.
Exactly. Yeah.
I usually look at racials as in Mythic Plus, utility matters. In Raid, it doesn't matter because the DPS difference is usually tiny.
Right. Well, it's very different when you're moving DPS in a raid because you're moving, 13 or 14 people's focus. So you're moving like a giant laser cannon versus in small group content, you're moving like multiple handguns, right? So you got to like pick and choose. But whereas the utility there is definitely going to be interesting. I don't know. Volpera utility is bag space and a Hearthstone. I mean,
hey, don't
you'll be a
on
fox.
The bag space utility. I'm transferring Volpera just for the bag space. My bags are cranked full right now.
If they had Volpera in for Mechagon, I would have switched instantly. My bags.
Really? So yeah, it was actually confirmed in chat. I guess all the new allied races stuff. It was confirmed. It's the pre-order patch 835. So that's like the pre-patch. If you pre-order Shadowlands, then you'll get the option to race change your Death Knights to anything.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, 8.3, not 8.35?
Yeah, 8.3.
Not even
when
the
Volpera comes out.
pre-patch. So when
No,
Volpera
yeah.
comes out. Wow, okay.
Yeah, all the files were added in the
Oh.
A3 data mine. So,
oh gosh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's
I
even
won't switch.
earlier.
I'm quite happy with my troll female, honestly.
That's fine.
I'm gonna become a fox.
Essentially January, yeah. End of January is when it can all happen. Yeah. That's pretty nuts.
Maybe I'll stay. I'll go Lightforge because I'm ally.
Yeah, you definitely could. But that'd be interesting. All right. Y'all can take a quick reprieve, take a step away, walk around a little bit if you need to. I'm going to talk to chat for a few minutes, and then we'll get to, if you have questions for the guests today or anything in particular to pinpoint, you can bring up your Q&A sort of AMA section. We'll sort of wiggle that into the latter half of the show. But if you weren't here earlier, of course, and haven't heard the spiels or haven't been here in a little while, just to update you, we have Balance Druid next Sunday, then Fury Warrior, and then it's holiday time. Probably going to take that week off because I might not even be around. And then we'll have the year-end special. I don't know what the year-end special is going to be this year. Normally it's just a bunch of my friends to get together and we sort of talk about the year and BlizzCon a little bit more and stuff, but maybe I'll do a totally different show on the year-end special and not even talk about World of Warcraft. What would that be like? We'll see what that gets to. More on that. Of course, updates on the show and everything else goes on to Twitter. If you miss the archive of the show, of course, don't forget that everything gets plopped up on my YouTube channel. That's me and Mike spinning from our BlizzCon bans because YouTube is very angry right now for some reason. But everything gets put up on YouTube if you miss the live shows. So all the past shows, everything is playlisted by the year. All the BlizzCon coverage right here, the pre and the post BlizzCon shows, if you missed any of that. And of course, the show is on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, my website as all MP3s, and new as of last week, you can now just search FinalBossTV on Spotify, and it should pop up as a podcast. So if you use any of those for your RSS feed needs, or if you want to listen to the audio-only stuff, there you go. It's literally almost everywhere now, except like SoundCloud, but that's all manual, and I'm not doing it. Don't ask. It's enough places. There it is. Additionally, of course, big shout out to helping the show, the stream, everything in between keep going and moving forward to year 7+ of how long I've been doing this. The show is now sponsored and partnered with Corsair and Elgato. There are huge Black Friday and Cyber Monday sales going on, as you would imagine. So if you were looking at a whole bunch of updates and bits and bobs and pieces and parts for your upcoming builds, I would definitely check out the links down below if you're on YouTube, or the links right down below if you're on the stream, or the links in chat even. It actually just popped up, almost like I timed it. Not really, it just sort of happened. But you can support what I do here by getting stuff for your next build. I have a huge build starting around the holiday times that I've been working on all year, so I will live stream the new build of the new studio and everything that I have put together, that I have gotten through Corsair, that I've purchased, that I've put together, that you guys have helped me out. And that's all going to be live streamed here in case you want to watch all that come together. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that is going on the websites right now. So if you are looking for something for yourself, or you have a friend that does anything in this media production world, then either let them know, of course, that there's all these deals going on. So please do. It's definitely the time of the year to work on stuff like this, the whole Black Friday, Cyber Monday timeframe. But if you want to support what I do here in a more just like physical sense that you want to put on your body, I'm wearing the little Lich King and Cinderosa that Faye Bellina made. One of her older designs, actually been on the show for a while now, but it's a Death Knight show, so I got to wear Arthas. Right now, and I don't know how much longer this is going to last, maybe through Tuesday, everything on Design by Humans, my apparel shop, is 30% off. And if you slam in a handful of shirts, it's also free worldwide shipping on any cart $50 or over. So you can go check that out. When you go to the Final Boss TV DBH store, these are all of just the designs. When you click on one of the design you're looking at, then you get all the ways to customize it. So you get to change where you want to put, say, Little Arthas or the Little Dark Lady or the Son of the Wolf, right? You can check out all of these, and then you can put them on tank tops, hoodies, other types of shirts, baseball tees, etc. It's not just t-shirts. It's a whole slew of things. You can change the color. There's some fabric options, different styles of cuts, and of course, get the sizes you want. And that's that. We have some updates for patrons. You're going to be getting a special crew shirt. Your decision on any of the apparel items, and then you're going to be also getting the newest one, the Little Queen shirt, which is based after Queen Ajara for the newest tier. Drinking out of a little wine glass out there on the right side of your screen just now. So there's links below if you're on YouTube, or links below if you're on Twitch. Either one works, the holiday time frame. So gift ideas or just for yourself, also fine. So thank you very much for getting this going. This is going on 7 years now. Since Mist of Pandaria, we've been here, about to start up another expansion of beta testing shows, of class and spec coverage streams and videos. So if you've been around since then, more are coming. More are definitely on the horizon. So, all right, Bicep, you ready to take some questions from chat? Tzo?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
I am.
Yes, please. Uh-oh.
Oh, yes, please.
Well, I have some canned questions first off.
Okay.
And then if anyone has any questions from chat, please drop them in there and I will integrate.
Mm-hmm.
But the first one is sort of a softball. Cistara, what is your favorite Apocalypse skin?
Mage Tower, no question.
That's the Death's Deliverance one?
The
one with the
yes,
two
that's
blades
the
that
one.
spins around with the giant horns on it.
Yep. Looks like a giant pair of scissors, basically.
Yeah. Evil, terrible
does.
bone scissors. Yeah.
I haven't
Yeah.
thought about that.
It's a good looking sword. Kind of a mace, but yeah, it's a good looking sword.
Yeah.
Biceps, what's your
Got-
favorite?
I like the hidden one. I think it's Bone Reaper. I don't know, looking at your screen.
Ah, yes, that's the bottom one, the scythe one.
Yes. Oh, it's so nice. I think I like the blue tint.
There's like a green tint and a blue tint. There's the blue. Yeah. That's the good one.
Mm. Yeah. I've used that since I got it.
It's always
I
interesting.
haven't changed.
You haven't changed it
Yeah.
since you got it, really?
Yeah. The hidden
I haven't
one
changed my
looks
transport
so
to Mr.
good.
Pandaria, so like I usually stick with what I have.
Tzo, what? I think you're using one of these right now in your screenshots. You've got the
Yeah. So I think it's the one from PvP.
Hand
like
of
the green
Pestilence.
tint.
Oh no,
I think it's
Famine.
yeah. No, the Famine Bearer. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one looks pretty good. I like it for like some pieces of gear, but also the scissors. Scissors are nice. So I don't know. I think Unholy actually has some of the best overall artifact appearances
Yeah.
out of any class.
Apocalypse looks sick. Yeah, it does look really
Honestly, though, shout out Herald of Pestilence too, because like that one also owns.
Yeah.
Like the Unholy actually just has so many good artifacts. DK,
It's a good looking
okay,
weapon.
except for Blood.
Frost
Frost has
is-
a lot of good ones too.
Eh,
I like their hidden one. Their hidden one is my favorite.
yeah, hidden one's good. Outside of that, they looked like
Yeah,
they looked a little small.
agree.
Good looking sword. I think that the art team always does a lot of stuff. It's always weird. The two-handed weapon. This is the follow up to that. Is that do you actually have? As Bicep has been. Do you have other two-handed weapons that you hold dear, or do you just use Apocalypse all the time now since Legion? Because there are other really cool looking two-handers in the game, but when you have these,
Yeah. I don't even use Apocalypse like the Mogs. Normally, like I'll switch it around, but like
sure.
I'll use the current one that I'm using is the Mithrax two-hander, I believe,
Yeah,
like
you
the
do.
glowing one.
Mhm.
That one with Warrior Tier 3 looks pretty good. Or I'll use like Tayshalak, looks pretty good as well.
Yeah, you got that big sword in your back right now on your
Yep.
DK. Or no, I can have your. Hold on, where's your? There it is. You can look at your armories right now here too. Yeah, there it is. The one thing I want to bring up, it's definitely part of the RP. There's a couple of specs in the game or classes in the game where you are an RPer if you don't even know it yet. And let me see if chat picks up on this. All right, this is Cistara. All right, that's his female blood elf. And then there's Tzo's male human death knight. Okay, see if you see the pattern here. That's that one. And then here's Bicep. That's his female troll. Just if you let me know if you see something, if you notice a pattern here, just curious. Just gonna, yeah, totally not skulls. Yeah, the unmodded gloves at Bicep. Oh no, it's true. Oh, scuffed.
Okay. I don't know where those gloves are from.
Oh, the gloves that match the bone.
Avian Sentinel.
I don't.
Yeah.
Why do I even have them equipped? I can't remember.
I mean,
See.
Cistara's got the old sleek, well, the old, I say sleek, but it's like the old armor that was just painted on your body, whereas Tzo is just like a chunky boy.
That mod cost me 3 million gold, so I'm gonna keep it on.
Oh, well, I mean,
Okay.
that's, I
Yeah.
respect that.
To be fair, mogging human male is impossible. So it's
Really?
not, oh yeah.
It's like a standard T-pose mod. You put whatever you want on him.
Yeah, but to make it like look good,
Mm,
it's like
oh.
like to make it look like a DK and a human is in my opinion not easy. But I'm also not that great at transmog.
So I have a dad joke for you. You may have already spoiled it for if you looked at chat, but this might be a thing if you're on YouTube or listening. What do you call an undead tax collector? A debt knight.
Boo.
I read that in the chat.
Yeah, it's from Spicy Miso in chat. Got him. I like it. I don't like it at all. That's no. Oh man.
I give it an 8 out of 10.
If you could have any undead model as your ghoul skin, assuming it was purely cosmetic, which model would you use? There's like one glyph that changes your ghoul, right? That's it. Not a lot of customization there. Like,
Yeah, you get guys, don't you?
yeah. It's a lot of like you can make up like a skeleton boy or like a Vrykul skeleton man or a different ghoul. It's like a bunch of different ghoul models in the game right now. That'd be neat if you had options.
Patchwork.
Oh, you could. Well, they took a
Good old boy.
because you got the sludge belcher.
Yeah, we had that
like
before. I like
A-bomb
that.
from PvP for
Yeah.
PvE.
I think that's-
Actually, if I could do anything, like anything I wanted with it, I would definitely make it someone in my raid, but like undead.
okay.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So like
Yeah.
I've seen
Like
Ayla
like
in
the
chat.
old Raise Ghoul or Raise Ally.
Yeah, so it's
Oh.
like I've seen Ayla in chat. It's like, yeah, you're my mage now.
that would be. I think that's the biggest point of what Shadowlands looks like is that there's a lot of just optional cosmetic and customizations that need to come into the game. It's basically Blizzard noticing and having to pivot on essentially a whole expansion's worth of time, which is not much in the grand scheme of things, to try to catch up to like Final Fantasy XIV's huge cosmetic social game where, I mean, who'd have thunk that having cosmetic options in a game where like you connect with your character, your avatar in a virtual space is really important to you. Because we have all the new like facial expressions and all the new tattoo body stuff coming. Like the human one is crazy where you can be like a slew of different like actual races in our world. You can actually be not just a white dude, I guess. So that's going to be huge for actually making your character, even though sometimes you don't even see your character if you're all covered in armor. But then you can also be, I've had transmog on the show before where you're basically just wearing pants. So there's that. And I say pants, I should say pants like this. Everyone just transmogs to basically underwear.
Yeah, it's moon the moon guard.
Yeah.
Shire.
So then there is, I'm going to wiggle this in as a more serious topic while I catch some questions from chat. Bicep, you were talking about something before we turned the show on about some pet claw macro dark
Oh, yeah.
transformation.
Oh god.
I want
This is my favorite bit of the Theo crafting
Timer now.
that we've done. You know, okay,
Yeah,
I'm
can
gonna
we
be
get a
quick about
10-minute
this.
timer on screen, please?
Well, I have a timer right
Okay.
here for the show, so I could, yeah.
Okay, you check the timer. I'm gonna be quick. All right. So the thing is that dark transformation has a travel time. So when you press the button, it's gonna take a bit of time before dark transformation is gonna happen on your pet, right? We use this pair of macros in Mythic Plus where we turn off claw from out course cast so that your pet gets 100 energy. We turn it back on with dark transformation, so you start using it with 100 energy. That actually is quite important. You gain quite a lot from doing that. Anyway, the thing is that since dark transformation has travel time, you turn on claw and you put that on at the same time. You might think that since dark transformation is going to have time to travel, your pet is going to use a claw without being transformed, then get affected, and then start doing normal claws, right? So you always lose out on that first claw. Reality is that it doesn't happen, and it depends on how far away from your pet you are. Okay? So it goes like this, that most pets in the game, it looks like, follow this weird behavior where they can only attack in 1.2-second intervals. Okay? This used to be an issue for All Reserve. It used to be an issue for Margus. It was currently an issue for Condensed Life Force. They fixed that recently. It's an issue for Hunter pets since they can't attack quickly enough. You have to like macro the attacks because they can only attack at 1.2-second intervals. Anyway, what happens is then when I press that macro, my pet might use its claw from now and then 1.2-second forwards randomly. Okay, we don't know where we are when we press it. So if you're really close to your pet, you press the macro, all right? It's not going to be long before it's dark transformed. So the probability that it actually uses this untransformed claw in that short period of time is very small. But if you actually use dark transformation with a macro and you stand like 40 yards away, it's always going to do this untransformed claw beforehand. All right. So if you want to be really min-max about this macro, you need to make sure you stand on top of your pet when you use it. Otherwise, you might use a claw that isn't empowered.
Now, the real picking your brain on this one, if you've done all this math, Bicep,
Yeah.
how much DPS difference is this?
Well, you know, in AoE, okay, in AoE,
If it even happens to begin with, how much
Even
DPS loss
happens.
is it?
okay, since your pet only uses like 7 or 8 claws in one dark transformation,
Sure.
one of those is going to be a good chunk, right? That's like 16% something, depending on how many you get in total, and that's going to be roughly translate into how much AoE you do. So if you stand far away with pet, you might lose 10-15% of your AoE damage. Or you can be smart about it and not macro it together, but that might lose you a single claw because then you would activate it too late and not really optimize the uptime.
The other way to play around it is to use a go-to, so on a default pet action bar, it's control 3, I think. You send your pet like 8 yards out, and then you hit your transform. It'll auto cast the charge in, and then while it's charging, you turn claw back on. So.
Mm-hmm. So then it will never have the opportunity to use this untransformed claw.
Because it's not.
Yeah. I just find it really interesting because this was like, sometimes you find stuff which is just completely out of the blue. I didn't know dark transformation had travel time until Shuey told me. And then you'd be like, well, hang on, if you got a travel time, this macro shouldn't work. And then you test it and you're like, oh, hang on.
There's
because
also
of this
kind
other
of
thing, it actually does work.
There's also kind of so it has a travel time, but then it also delays. So like if your pet's not near you and you hit dark transformation, you'll see it transform 30 yards out and then just kind of sit there for a few seconds until it because we have a charge, but if charge is on cooldown, it can't use it. So it'll try to use it and then it'll just walk in, but there's the 2-second delay where it doesn't. It's really weird.
So Chewy is in chat. The DK Chewy Tuesday. He linked me a Wowhead link to a passive somewhere in here, some modify effect.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Oh, is it the Raise Ally one?
Yeah.
Well, it's called Arise and Serve. It's a little cut off because it's the full screen. Raise Ally now restores all health and mana, and upon death, the Death Knight now has an option to raise himself. Discuss.
We're now shamans.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
I
okay,
would love
so
it.
yeah,
Why not?
there's two ways that I think it could go, right? Like you either have it work like a shaman Ankh,
Mhm.
or it's just an ability to be raised yourself if you're dead.
Right.
If it's the shaman Ankh, personally, I wouldn't want it. If it's the other one, I don't see a problem with
So if it's a personal soul stone that counts as a B res on yourself.
it. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
just
that's
give
not
us that
good.
straight up. That's not that, like, I would take that. Just like, I don't think I think that should be basic. But if it's a shaman Ankh, honestly, I think Ankh should be removed. It breaks a lot of stuff. Just thinking
I'm
back to like,
not against that either.
you know, just this one little boss that, was last tier, and you'd have to reset between pulls, and that caused a whole bunch of stuff that
do
I don't
not.
ever want to deal with again.
Yeah. If I had to pick between that and getting Purgatory back, I would pick Purgatory, I believe.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I would also pick that, but
There you go.
Yeah, we can't.
Yeah. Okay. There was also a little bit of murmuring when the data mining was happening for the either 8.3, 8.3.5, or at least the Shadowlands stuff, right? This new scenario you're getting, the change in the DK starting story experience, all this stuff. And the new sword was data
I
mined.
know where this is going.
The like Hellfire DK spec. Everyone's like, 4th DK spec? Where's the 3rd Demon Hunter spec? But anyway, so do you think a 4th spec could even work? Or are you just like in the pure cosmetic camp? And Tzo, since you know where this is going.
Oh, I
Well-
actually thought you were going a different way, so I'm glad it didn't
Oh,
go the way I thought.
wait, what way could this have gone?
yeah, I thought it was going a different way as well.
So
But
yeah, I'm not gonna bring it up because I hate discussing it. But no, I don't think another
Why?
spec would work.
yeah.
I don't like you have
Where would
three
it fit?
specs.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know.
like, so you have-
why
you have a
would it
t-
be one?
It would have
it
to
would-
be
A
A
range.
range
DPS or healer
DPS
spec.
or a healer?
be-
Like,
yeah, and as a
we're gonna
as a
have 3
Death
melee
Knight,
specs?
yeah, as a Death Knight, you are a melee spellcaster. Like if you search Death Knight, that's what you see, melee spellcaster. And if you're gonna have 3 melee specs and then a tank spec, like, I don't see it.
I don't get the purpose of it, really.
It was a lot of that just internet all over the place, thinking that just because there's like a fire DK weapon that just ties
DK, but red.
and
Yeah.
sure, it just I mean, it could literally be like green fire for Warlock, but red frost
I'd
boy
be down.
for
Yeah,
Yeah?
I'd be down for that. But a 4th spec, I just
right. I don't
I don't know. I feel like people sometimes project what they want to see onto things that
of course.
get released.
Of course. Oh, see, Choose is just linking me things.
That's what he does best.
Oh, this is old. My
here,
gosh.
Here, just look at this.
Wait, Death's Flight. Pull yourself to a location. Ah, the reverse grip.
The reverse dead
Yeah.
grip. I want that so bad.
I think we kind of have that with Death's Advance, but like, yeah, if you are not in range currently,
Yeah,
that
can
would
we
be really
can we talk about
nice.
DK mobility, because it is abysmal.
Well, so Death's Flight, 90-second cooldown, is old school stuff. It was only it basically is just intervene on a exceedingly long cooldown, because it would
I
just
would still take it.
it pulls you to a friendly target or pet only. You cannot use it as a charge. So
Yeah, I mean, 90-second cooldown replaces grip. I'd still take it on like a majority of fights.
You
yeah,
could do
Yeah.
so much stuff with that in PvP.
yank
Yeah,
yourself
yeah.
to someone else.
Like,
Oh.
as someone that rerolls constantly, going from DK to like Rogue or Windwalker or Demon Hunter or Warrior, the amount of outplay you can do with mobility.
Yep.
And like coming back to DK, where if you don't have Death's Advance on every 45 seconds for Queen's Court, you're dead. It's just like, okay, like what am I going to do here?
You can take Wraithwalk too, Cistara.
I take that on every fight, and it's still not enough. I don't know what you want from me. Like,
That's true. That's true.
Right.
It's still better. I mean, I brought that up as one of my not selling points, but talking points about the changes to Death Knight that at least Blizzard gave you, because part of your fantasy is you're slow and you're weighty and you're like rune weapons and so having those cooldowns was still helpful. They gave you another one, right? Another option to talent to a second one. So at least they gave you something. Now, I would even argue, I still say that DK is not his lowest class in the game. It's now Paladin.
I'd say
Yeah,
Pally.
Yeah.
Paladin.
They are
But they kind of
easily
run into the
the
same
slowest.
issue, right? Where like
Yeah.
both of them are it's just a movement speed increase for a short burst. It's not anything compared to all the new classes now where everyone has a dash or a blink or you know.
Yeah.
I think you could look like Fetid is a great example of where I was like, yeah, I'm a DK. This sucks. Like
Yeah.
both DKs and Paladins had to pre-plan where they were going to get knocked to, and like, okay, I'm going to walk
yeah, I
back.
remember
So like,
that.
knock me back the shortest amount of distance because I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Whereas like rogues could just like shadow step everyone or sprint. Demon hunters could just glide. So yeah, like yeah, you just feel bad as a Pally or a DK.
I think the largest issue at the moment is that our negative parts when it comes to movement isn't outweighed by some other kind of utility. You know, it's fine to be slow if you can do other things when it comes to utility, but that's not currently the state. I think that's the core issue.
What AMZ?
Well, that's AMZ is potentially on the horizon to come back in Shadowlands, at least that one. And then there was an earlier question about Covenant abilities. The meme. Well, go ahead, Star. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I just linked the entire all of the DK ones got released the other day.
They did, yeah,
because of like an interview. I just linked the article in chat if you wanna, or in this chat, you can link it there as well. But
I'll link it.
I don't know how Tzo or Biceps feels about this, but honestly, like looking at all of them, personally, they all look very underwhelming just based off the other 11 that we've seen for other classes. Seems very, very underwhelming for DK.
I mean, there'll be no way we can read through all these right now. Well, these are just the 4 main ones, right? Okay, the 4 main ones for the 4 known covenants.
Right.
Death's Due, Shackle the Unworthy, Swarming Mist, and Abomination Limb. Well, so as Chuck can read these for a little bit here. The meme the meme that I was going to propose was that, are you going to pick your covenant based on the movement ability, not anything else?
I mean, potentially.
Swarming Mist will be like mandatory as Frost Breath is still a thing, I would imagine, but
probably, yeah.
The problem is like, I think in different scenarios, like, so the one that grips people, that seems very OP in PvP, or like disruptive in PvP. Maybe not broken, but like, oh, Destrolock's trying to cast Chaos Bolt. Let's just grip him repeatedly for like 6 seconds in a row, so he can't do anything about it.
Right.
And like, I hope they get the tuning right, or like abilities right, so that they you don't have to swap, or like you can't swap. They've already stated that. So
well, no, they said you can swap, but it's going to be like a huge cost.
Yeah. So yeah.
I mean, the cost, I would expect that the initial cost won't be, it could be something, but the way it sounded too is that essentially you're just resetting, imagine Legion, resetting your artifact to 1.
Yeah,
because you're going to reset your covenant progression in your covenant dude to 1 if you change covenants. You have to re-farm the power of anime that you've already farmed for, which could,
like, yeah. I mean, it's kind of annoying too, though, because the way I can see it is we basically have to math all this out before we even get into Shadowlands.
Some of it,
so that you can pick it from the start. And then if, like, Unholy gets super buffed, like a Tyrion, or Frost gets changed, or one of the Covenant abilities gets changed, you're going to have to make that switch and then do it all over again at, anyone's
it's tough
whim, basically.
Yeah, Word Up Senpai and I talked about this as our post BlizzCon bants about how hopefully they're all relatively agnostic in actual power. Like they all, like, again, but I mean, looking at, say, Swarming Mist, and you talked about because it gives you runic power, and that immediately goes like, oh, breath. So, but if that only gives you a couple of seconds or something, like mathematically that's not as strong as like the actual damage of, say, Abomination Limb would be, then they're just sort of not hopefully they're all ice cream, different flavors of ice cream. So they're all still
Yeah.
ice cream.
They should probably like ideally be asked. So there's this weird thing where you don't want them to be powerful so that the choice actually really matters, and then you have to re-roll if something changes.
Right.
But you also don't want them to be entirely unward, like not count at all. So that it's a really tricky thing, I think. Like
Yep.
you can't make it in a way so that it's good everywhere. If they're impactful, that's going to be detrimental to other areas because then you might pick the wrong one and then you have to regrind it all, and that's going to suck, you know.
No, yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
actually of the opinion that the speed increase, like the different forms of speed increases, should be the thing that you get. That there's no like covenant ability. You just get like the talents whenever you're doing. I think it's like the tower or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't exactly remember.
Torghast.
Like yeah, Torghast. Like you get the talents and stuff still. But like it's like, oh, I really want this kind of movement ability. This is what I'm gonna choose. Not like associated with DPS or utility and stuff like that. I think that'd be a little better.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
I think the way that I would like to see it go is kind of the opposite direction. Like if I think back to the times where I've had kind of a lot of fun playing WoW, it's like when you have a lot of decisions to make that are kind of actually impactful. Not that you're like locked into. So like things like Legion legendaries, or gear swapping in Mythic Plus, where you have decisions to make like moment by moment that actually matter and can swing your performance in a variety of ways. Like I think being able to switch covenants would be a very welcome thing. And I think they're kind of going the opposite direction with, even things like Azerite traits where you're locked in. I'd like to see more ability for players to decide and change things from pull to pull or boss to boss.
Yeah, because that's the covenant ability, like your one movement and then your one covenant, like Swarming Mist or Abomination Limb, right? Your one class, it's across your whole class, but it's from that covenant. Those abilities I don't think worry me as much, because if you've paid attention to what they've found out about more of this, is your soul bind, the dude that you talk to that you get like story with, and that you have like, and you don't romance them, but that's some kind of like Mass Effect-y feel. That character you talk to is essentially just a bit of like the Netherlight Crucible and your artifact smushed into an NPC. And that has a talent tree of passives and blah blah blah. But some of those are swappable, and it's a consumable thing like a relic slot. Those scare the crap out of me. Because if they're different for all 4 covenants, and they scale differently, and those are impactful, but they don't line up with like the DPS gain of like the offensive ability. There's a lot of just murky water there. That might be like the biggest amount of customization we get in the new expansion, though, because we're not going to have like Azerite gear or an artifact or something. But still, that's what worries me.
I think there's a lot of systems coming in Shadowlands that I think could be very, very good for the game as a whole. But they also have to be handled well, and there's a lot of unknowns at the moment, so it could go either direction. I'm hopeful with things like the tower. The tower looks sick. Legendary's coming back, looks sick. Things that we've asked for a while of unpruning, great. It looks very good. It's just a matter of execution at this point, I think.
Correct.
So it's kind of waiting. Yeah,
I'm with that. How about, to wrap us down here, because we're almost at 2 hours, and that's like my cutoff point. We have definitely more, and of course, if you guys have more questions, you can drop them in the DK Discord, or when I do the social plugs, you can find these gentlemen elsewhere. But what is your currently in the game right now, or maybe like something you're looking forward to in the future with the corrupted gear or the new raid, if you've done raid testing, for example? Biceps, what's your like, oh heck yeah moment when you're playing your Unholy Death Knight? What gets you just like gets your juices flowing?
I'd say it's definitely playing Mythic Plus. And, when you got a really juicy pull, you pop down IC, you get 30 wounds up, Death and Decay, and that first Scorch Strike, there's nothing as satisfying as that. The entire pack just drops. You can feel that was your Scorch Strike, and it's just so nice. I love it.
Tzo, what's yours?
I'd say it's either that or the overall feeling of if they were to buff Gargoyle again and like make that a thing, to like have power over your like ghouls and minions and stuff, and specifically Gargoyle, so that you could actually like pump a ton of damage out in a short amount of time and like have that potent cooldown. And like Gargoyle specifically, like the playstyle, I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I'd have to say either of those two. But that first Scourge Strike in AoE is pretty nice.
All right, and Cistara, yours.
Yeah, I mean, kind of echoing similar sentiments. Right now, it's probably the Mythic Plus, but previously it was Arbiter. Like, if I go back and look at like screenshots I've taken of, oh, I want to remember this because that was sick. You know, going through TOS and Antorus, you know, we had a weaker that told us how much damage our Arbiter did, how many hits it did.
Oh, I
there were
remember
crits
those.
and non-crits.
Oh,
Yeah, like
yes.
screenshotting that when you hit 100 mil Arbiter was like that was the
Yeah.
sickest feeling in the game. They
And
took
then
it
you
away,
wipe.
and I was real upset. Yeah.
Oh, it's like rolling Super Saiyan on Outlaw right now, and then you wipe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just see
Actress
the
rating was
100 mil
like-
pop up. You look at the meters, you're double everyone else's damage, and you're just
Yeah.
like, okay, this is sick.
Yep.
Oh, Antrus and Holy was like the most fun I've had
Yeah,
rating.
it was so good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on the way out, then, Cistara, back to you. Do you have any closing shout-outs, remarks, anything you want to soapbox, any moratoriums you want to put on something that you get asked a lot or see in the community? This is your little moment. Go.
Yeah. So you know, shout out to my guild, Vodka and Zul'jin. Love all those guys. Been raiding with them for a couple months now. And just they're all great peeps. So shout out to them. Shout out to the DK Discord. A lot of good people in there. A lot of great people that are there to help and ask questions or answer questions. I'm always in there, so I'm always available generally on Discord as well. So if you have any questions about DK or Mythic Plus or Weak Auras or whatever, just hit me up on Discord. I'm usually friendly. So yeah,
Usually friendly? What does that mean?
usually pretty friendly.
Depends if you just scuffed a 23 or something like that, and you might be a little grumpy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. What is just a Mythic Plus side, what did you think of the first 25 in the world? It's pretty... told to gore, though.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they were Alliance, I'm pretty sure, so that kind of skews a little bit. I haven't played as much High Mythic Plus this season. I generally in BFA, I've only pushed, like, seriously about 1 week every season.
Okay.
So I kind of, like, don't... I liked Legion Mythic Plus way more than BFA Mythic Plus. Whole nother story that would take a whole nother episode to get into.
Oh, that's...
Court of Stars.
Yep.
Yeah. If you ever want to do a Mythic Plus episode, let me know, because I got lots of opinions about that one.
Oh, yeah, I got another one I should probably do, because I did one earlier in the expansion, sort of as like the first big one, which was very popular, both on Twitch and on YouTube. So I probably should do a second one sort of as a closing out. So in the future, my people will talk to your people.
Definitely. Yeah, but I mean, the 25 Total Glory is definitely impressive. But
Yeah,
I
for
definitely
sure.
think there needs to be looked at for racials. So especially in that dungeon in particular. So
Yep.
yeah.
Shadow Meld's a little stupid, but Tiza, how about you? Soapbox it up.
So shout out to my guild, Death Jesters on Storm Rage. Great group of people here. Always fun to hang around. Also, like the simulation craft community, they're always super helpful. Like if we ever have questions about how something's implemented, they help us out with that. Also, just like being able to do sims and stuff takes a lot of time that a lot of people like spend hours upon hours of doing that, maybe goes unseen by a lot of people. But shout out to those guys that are doing all the sim work. And yeah.
Sounds good to me. Bicep, do you have anything you want to close out with?
Yes, since I don't really have a rating guild at my own retail, I'm going to shout out to my classic guild, which is called Mellanmjölk, which means semi-skimmed milk in Swedish. They're quite nice people,
Okay.
quite friendly. Yeah. Obvious shout out to the Acros Discord. I hang out there a lot. I get a lot of my influence, a lot of discussions. I learn a lot from talking to everybody and their experience there. So big shout out to that.
Awesome. So no moratoriums though. Nothing you need to like tell your fellow Death Knights to stop asking you. I want to poke Tzo about what.
Yes.
Oh.
Please stop asking me about 200 Frost. It is
Oh,
dead.
damn it!
Just kill it. Just kill it with fire. It is dead. End of story.
I feel like I want to say stuff that people don't necessarily want to ask me.
This is not Unholy specific, but quit gemming haste on Blood DK. That just stop.
Oh. What should Blood DK's gem?
Versatility or crit.
Versatility or crit.
Depending on if you want survivability or damage.
Right.
All right.
Is crit that much? Crit's survivability, right?
No, crit is damage. Point for point, crit is better than haste for damage.
Okay. That's
and verse. It only gives you parry, and it's like absolutely worthless. Do not go crit if you ever want to survive anything. I did it in Old Year for parse whoring, but that's a story.
Well, that's you. Man, you put a moratorium on the two-handed frost. That was actually one of my like segues earlier by saying it'd be really easy if you could just go back and forth between frost and unholy with the same damn weapon.
Oh, I can discuss it, but I will shoot it down so fast.
Well, I'll say that for the after. I'll do that in the after show. You know what? That's the after show. Let me put a note right here real quick before we close out. Ask Tzo about two-handed frost for real though. Yeah. Okay. What, Cistara? What?
No, I was just gonna mention Ice Cap Frost, but I don't think we'll get into that.
Oh no. Oh, that's say that for next year's Frost show.
Ice Cap next tap.
No.
It's gonna happen. Is that what you're saying?
Stop! I'm hitting this damn button.
He's hitting it.
You gotta calm down and you crazy kids. All right, my name's Adam KK Bay. Thank you for tuning in to episode number 204 of FinalBossTV today for the Unholy Death Knight. If you missed the Frost show, check that one out. It's in the archive playlist. Of course, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, now Spotify, and a website for the audio-only versions. But back around the horde there again. There's Cistara. He's on the Twitters at Cistorin. Did someone take your name, or is that your original name? Did you name change? Who is this person?
No, it's I like used to like go by that, and I just changed Cistara. It was like when I made WoW, I made that, and then it just kind of evolved over the years. So,
but I appreciate your mythic input, sir, and sitting on the show today, despite the fact that your dog ate your camera. Apparently.
Yeah, very unfortunate.
Yeah. Appreciate it. And there's Tzo as well. He's over on the Twitch at TZODK. Just 5 letters. So if you have any questions for him, you can go hit him up over there. But thank you for being the fresh meat today as well, sir. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. It's always good to be here.
Ooh.
You know, if you ever have DK questions, feel free to come back.
Oh, we'll again, my people, your people. We have a new expansion coming up. There'll be new shows. There'll be beta stuff here and there. I'm sure we will. We'll get the information out there.
And join the DK Discord. Ask us questions.
Yeah. Do that. Or you can go... Bicep, are you even streaming right now? Because you have a Twitch as well.
I did that for brief moments of time.
Brief moments.
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel as well with one YouTube video.
I saw that.
Good.
It's like 815 or something, you madman.
You know, pretty much everything I say there is still relevant, actually.
Okay. True.
You can always read the Wowhead guide is more relevant. Alright. Also, all the weird theory crafting things, that's in the guide as well. If you go to Adon's concept, I got really weird stuff there. That doesn't really matter, but still it's interesting.
I appreciate it. Well, I'm getting linked a meme. Got a Gru meme.
Oh,
that's a good meme.
Get a 77 mil Dark Arbiter on pull, wipe. Get a 68 million Dark Arbiter next pull, wipe. Kill the boss with a 32 million Dark Arbiter. Kill the boss with a 32 million.
That sums up Dark Arbiter. But God, I miss
it. It's pretty good stuff. All right, next week, Balance Druid, Tettles, and someone else will be here. So chat, you'll be on the show because I suspect Mayonnaise. So bring those next week. It'll be a fun show. And we got Fury Warrior after that, then probably Holiday off, and then the year-end special. So thank you for tuning in today. Trust in your... I don't know. Are you still farming Benthic? Are you... Get your Paragon caches up, kids. You can get 19,999 rep. You get 2 Paragon boxes from every single one. That's like 40% of your first level towards finishing the AP grind. To be proactive. I don't know. Until next week, everybody. Bye. Bye. Biceps wave, because they can't wave because they're off camera scrubs. There you go. I'll take that. What the hell?
I didn't know it was
I'm
on camera.
waving. Bye.
Oh, waving.